I think we've got quite a lot of good news to talk about, and look forward to sharing that with you.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Let's jump right in. First of all, sorry the show was a little bit late. I had originally, planned when I first started the podcast to do it every Friday morning and have it out. And, there have been a couple times I've had to do it on Saturday, which was my intention here. But my weekend got crazy busy. My wife had to go out of town for something. And so I've got, the dog and the kids and, all kinds of chores. And it was my daughter's birthday. There's lots of stuff going on. Anyway, so the show is coming to you. I'm recording it now Sunday morning, September 16th. And this is actually already episode 17, which is kind of crazy to think about when I started. And I can see how hard it is to try to commit to a show regularly, every Friday. It actually is difficult to carve out the time. As you know, I'm an emergency physician. Those of you who have been listening to the show, so my schedule's pretty random. People often ask me, "What's your schedule like?" Well, every week is different. Someone will say, "Well, when's if we have to schedule a meeting, what's a good day for you? What's a good time for you to have a meeting?" Well, there never really is. It kind of just all varies. Anyway, sorry about the show being a little bit late. Let's jump right in. First off, there was a really interesting article from Bloomberg.com titled "Exasperated Tesla Bull Says Musk Needs a Come to Jesus Moment." So the Tesla bull that they're referring to is an analyst named Romit Shah, who works for Nomura Instinet. And he said, if he were to leave, meaning Elon is inseparable from Tesla and the brand. If he were to leave or take a lesser role, I think it would be devastating for shareholders. What needs to happen is just a come to Jesus moment for Elon, end quote. And so, he talked a little bit more about his behavior and the impact on the brand, and that it's just simply created a big distraction. He said, quote, "If you're a long-term investor, it's hard to stay focused on the fundamentals, when this is going on," end quote. He also mentioned this idea that Tesla is losing executives and that they may be scared to work with him. In particular, I think there was a chief financial officer who started and left within a month at Tesla. That has been debunked at other sources where, Tesla's turnover as far as the executive level, the C-suite type people, is not significantly different. What really is, I think, the discriminating variable is simply the amount of scrutiny on everything that goes on with Elon and Tesla. The next article is about a Model 3, I believe, that was stolen. Actually, it was a Model S, stolen from the Mall of America, which is not too far from where I am here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what happened was, it sounds like it's fairly complicated, but there was a guy who had been renting from a store, from a business within the Mall of America called, I think it's called Trevla. Trevla, and he had rented a few times doing this. And what he did was he was able to get somehow his phone, authorized so that when he rented, he could use his phone and could set up that stuff during the time of the rental period. It sounded like while he was at the shop, he had kind of bragged to the people that he was renting from that he knew a lot about security and that he, kind of implied that he knew how to defeat the security on a Tesla. And then it turned out after renting a few times, the last time he rented, he just kind of took off with the car. Those of you who've been listening may recall that in an earlier episode, we talked about some data that shows if your Tesla gets stolen, I believe it's in the upper 90s. Don't quote me on it, but it's something like 98 to 99% of stolen Teslas are returned to their owners. And that has to do with the connectedness of the car and the trackability of it. Now, this thief was a little bit more sophisticated in that he did disable the GPS on the vehicle, so Tesla and the owner were not able to track the vehicle. But because of the way he'd been bragging and everything, there was certainly some suspicion that this was the guy. And it turns out that somehow the owner was able to track through the supercharging history. And I think the way that worked, although the article didn't get into it, is that you get charged unless you have unlimited lifetime supercharging. You get charged for that. It's also possible that your car, the app just tells you, where you've been from a charging standpoint. But in either case, they were able to identify and find this guy's car down in Waco, Texas. So 1,000 miles to the south approximately from where the vehicle was stolen. So I think the guy probably thought he had gotten away with it but eventually it did catch him. So, bottom line on that one is it is possible, because of the connectedness of the car, for someone to hack into it. That's theoretically possible. In this case, it wasn't just a brute hack. There was some social engineering in that he kind of worked through people, got his phone authenticated and that sort of thing. But bottom line, you're more than likely to get your car back, upper 90s%. If your car's stolen, yeah, it's going to suck. But unlike other vehicles, you have a very good chance, an excellent chance of getting your car back at some point. The next article is some really good news. This comes to us from electric.co. And this relates to factory tours that Tesla recently gave to some Wall Street analysts. Basically, when they got there, they were very impressed. Their exact quote was, quote, "Big picture, after touring the facility, we feel highly confident in Tesla's production process. Previous bottlenecks appear to have been remedied, and we're increasingly optimistic in Tesla's ability to hit and sustain weekly production rates of 6,000 Model 3 battery units per week, and with the new Groman machine, scale to approximately 8,000 per week with minimal additional capital investment." So obviously this is very good news, and it's, I think, part of a very positive week for Tesla on the whole. And for a little bit of background, the reference to the Groman machine, Grohmann, is a company that Tesla basically acquired, Groman Engineering in Germany. I believe it was within the last 12 months for sure. So the Groman machine was a new assembly line for battery production unit that basically was built in Germany. And Elon had talked about it, I think, at an investor call probably 2 quarters ago, about how this machine was already built, tested, verified, working awesome, and was being shipped basically to the Gigafactory, I believe, for the assembly of battery units. And once that's done, they just had to put everything on ships or planes or however they're getting over here and then reassemble the thing. And then from that point on, it's just a matter of turning it on. It's already been tested and put through its paces. Other sort of high points from the article were that the Gigafactory is at approximately 90% automated. And they said that the things that are left is battery cell production, energy pack assembly, drivetrain unit production. We'll strive for full automation. So there'll be portions of it that will always have some humans in it, it sounds like. But that's a pretty high number. I think if you've been paying attention to the headlines and the talk about all the different issues they've had with automation and the challenges that they've had, that's a much higher number than I would expect for it to be automated, especially after Elon had kind of talked at length at one of the investor calls when asked about an example of an area where they got ahead of their skis a little bit as far as automation. He talked about this fluffer bot. You may recall that was a bot that they had that was supposed to put, I guess, some padding and lay it down for the seats or put it between some layer. And it's really easy for a human to do, but they ended up trying to engineer this robot to do it. And it was just extremely difficult. And they finally just cut it out after, they started trying to refine the entire assembly line. But that was just one example. This 90% number certainly makes it sound like, although those were concerns, those things are clearly appear to be ironed out. The next story also coming to you from Electrek, but was reported widely, related to Hurricane Florence, which by the time you're listening to this has now passed. Tesla, basically, there are certain Tesla owners that have a software limited battery. I believe it's the 60 kilowatt battery is actually a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack and has simply been software limited. So the owner has the option in that particular situation to unlock the extra battery capacity for an additional fee at some point. However, Tesla, in light of the emergency, basically unlocked that temporarily for free to make sure that they had every advantage in trying to flee the path of the hurricane. Their quote from Tesla was, quote, "We are temporarily enabling your car to access additional battery capacity as well as free supercharging in preparation for Hurricane Florence. We hope this gives you the peace of mind to get to a safe location and will notify you before returning your car to its original configuration in mid-October. Badging on your display may adjust during this period. Safe travels," end quote. So, excellent story. Tesla's done this before. They did this in past emergencies and made good headlines. I believe that was also I think that hurricane was in Florida. I forget the name of it. But, what other company is going to do this? I saw some stuff on Twitter, too. There's no, internal combustion engine company, Ford and General Motors, et cetera. They're not going to send people gas coupons so they can flee from a hurricane. It's a nice thing to do. The fact that they don't even really have the capability, I don't think, to do that. If you were to try to logistically figure that out, Tesla, because of the connectedness of the vehicles and the fact that they can do things through software, like upgrade your battery pack in this particular situation. Other examples would be, unlocking a higher level of performance, which they've done in the past, as well as just generally upgrading your driving experience, making improvements to autopilot. They were actually able to fix a braking issue that was identified by a Consumer Reports testing, all through software. This is just one tiny example of all of the things that Tesla has an advantage in because of their ability to do over-the-air updates. And overall, great story, great headline for Tesla related to the hurricane. All right, let's move on. So the topic again this week, I just thought I would kind of go through an update with what's gone on since I ordered my Model 3. As you know, I did put a reservation in 2016, February 14th, as it turns out. Finally, eventually did put my order in on July 1st of this year. Initially was given a delivery date of October, November, December, which was fine. I really wanted to make sure I got it in by the end of the calendar year so I could get the federal tax credit. At some point, that was moved forward a month, September, October, November. And I was kind of, waiting to hear back. I'd had some initial correspondence with Tesla. I've been watching on the app to see if anything's changed. I've been checking into my account, honestly, several times a day just to see if anything has changed. I did finally get an email, and I got an invitation. So the first email I received was an invitation, it basically saying, congratulations, it's time to get your Model 3. And then they gave me a week. So basically the week in question was September 22nd through the 29th. So they gave me basically a Saturday through Friday. And then the days that worked out for me were either that Monday or Tuesday, the 24th or 25th. I live about 230 miles away from the delivery center. So the closest Tesla store to me is 230 miles away in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. So that's a pretty big drive. I have to figure out how to get there. It's going to be on, so the day I ended up with was the 24th at 11 a.m. as my pickup time. So I've got to figure out a way to get down there and then also, not leave a vehicle stranded or have to have another person drive and caravan back from the Minneapolis area. I did ask, now, many of you may not know this because I would imagine most listeners are within a shorter distance to a Tesla store. But the website does say if you're more than 160 miles from a Tesla center or store or showroom, that they will deliver your vehicle for you. So I did ask about that option, and what they told me was that, yeah, you could do that, but it could add up to 6 weeks onto your delivery time. So I decided against that, obviously. What I probably will end up doing is actually renting a car here in Fargo at the airport on Sunday, and then, getting, you just take it home and then leave very early in the morning on Monday. There happens to be, it's an Enterprise. There happens to be an Enterprise rental car place within about a 5-minute drive to the Tesla store in Eden Prairie. So I'll get there, and then I'll either see if the staff there can give me a quick lift or take an Uber to the Tesla store. And then, things really need to go pretty smoothly after that. I'm a little bit nervous about the fact that my first drive, I'm going to probably encounter some range anxiety. The whole drive probably comes out to like 238 miles. There's one supercharger there. It's pretty close to the city's area. So I think it's about 45 miles or so to the west on my way home. And then after that, the rest, I'm on my own. Assuming that they have it fully charged, and I'm certainly going to request that the car be, 90, 95%, maybe even 100% charged for this first time, just to make sure that I don't have any trouble. But if with the reported range of 310, nice weather, it's not super cold. Elevation is not an issue where we are, so there's really not any up or down that I have to factor into as far as a range penalty. And unless it's really windy, just going the wrong way, I really should be fine. But I am a little bit nervous about that first drive. I'll be by myself. I won't be super familiar with the car. Autopilot likely will not be available on the highway since there's an initial sort of training and configuration period, a calibration period is probably a better word, before autopilot turns on. I did learn this week that when you look at the screen and there's the little steering wheel, which basically turns blue. When you engage autopilot, you hear the two beeps, and then the steering wheel turns blue. That tells you that auto steer is on, lane keeping auto steer. I did learn this week that when you first get the car and the vehicle is going through that camera and sensor calibration period, that the wheel will sort of start to light up like a clock, where it'll just kind of make its way like a progress circle around the steering wheel, and to kind of give you an idea of how much longer it's going to take to calibrate your vehicle, which is kind of nice. So I didn't know that before. I just learned that a couple days ago. I'll be watching for that. Obviously, that will only affect you when you first get the vehicle. Other things that I've had to do is I talked to some Tesla owners here in Fargo about, what to do with the garage. To me, it's still kind of, I think I have a better understanding of it now. But for those of you who are maybe waiting for a Model 3 or first-time EV or Tesla owners, it was interesting. I had a couple of electricians come out. The first guy came out who'd done some work at our house before. We had some issues with the circuit breaker, the panels in the basement, where there weren't any open slots, and they were either going to have to add another panel or figure something out. And it sounded like it was actually going to be fairly expensive, but initially I was planning to just do two of the 240 volt outlets, I think it's 240 or 220, I think it's 240, of the NEMA 1450, which for reference is basically a dryer outlet, that heavy duty sort of bigger plug. It's like what you would plug your clothes dryer into. So we're going to do two of those in the garage. And then I talked to some of my friends from work and some other people who are Tesla owners about what they do. And actually one of the guys I work with let me go over to his house, and we kind of chatted about it, and he kind of showed me his setup and referred me to his electrician, who was great. Now, I called this guy, his name's Sean, on it, when I called him in the afternoon, and I told him I was getting my car in a couple weeks and that I'd kind of be in a hurry. The initial electrician that I had received a bid for that work, plus some other work at the house, sent me a proposal. I accepted it by email, and I just never heard back again. So it kind of irritated me a little bit. But this other guy, he basically met with me the next day. He was at the house. He said he'd be there at 2. He was there at exactly 2. And we kind of went through, and it sounds like he's kind of got a little bit different plan. I did decide to get, after seeing my friend's setup, a combination where you use a Tesla wall charger and set it up so that it's only available in off-peak hours, and you get a discount on your electric bill. In our case, they either give you a one-time rebate for the installation of the charger directly from the power company, or they're going to give me a pennies per kilowatt, discount or something like that on my bill, just moving forward forever. It sounds like that's a little bit simpler way to do it. If you set up the meter, if you set up your charger to be off-peak, then basically the power company has to have a relay. It's kind of like a cellular phone connection, I guess, where they can actually turn off and on the high-powered portion of it, the portion that's going to be off-peak, so that during on-peak hours, the power company turns it off, and when it's off-peak, then it turns back on again. The other half of that is that they also sometimes have to install a second meter, what's called an off-peak meter, hooked up to that unit. But in this case, if I'm just getting the rebate, if you're going for the rebate, you'll need that. But what they're going to do is just give me like a general discount off the bill. And I think administratively, from the power company standpoint, it's easier. I haven't really been able to figure out the math to know whether this is a good deal for me or not. I think over time, it's probably not a huge deal. I'm going to save money either way based on what I've spent in gas, and I may try to go through that. I had calculated that before. It came out to roughly, I think it was about $1,000, $1,200 a year on gas for driving for the Explorer. So assuming I do all my driving and replace that car, and I can charge some for free at work, either way, I'm going to be saving quite a bit of money. So we had to prep the garage. It turns out the installation is going to occur on the same day, on the 24th. So while I'm driving to get the car, the electrician will be at the house actually installing the equipment. I ordered a Tesla wall connector, which should be here by the end of this week. And then the following Monday, that's what I'm calling, for me, this is a national holiday. This is Tesla Pickup Day. This is National Tesla Day for Jeff here. So that day will be pretty big, and I'll have a nice long drive to get back. Try to get a little bit familiar with the car, and hopefully have some charging options ready to go by the time I get home, or at least by the end of the day. So pretty exciting day. The charging situation ended up costing me a bit more because he's going to have to punch through the wall in our garage and install a secondary panel, this high voltage channel. So that will supply the NEMA 1450 and then also the Tesla wall connector. And I did order the wall connector with the longer cable. You have the option to get one, I believe it's an 8-foot cable versus a 24-foot cable. And if I get the 24-foot cable, we're going to put it kind of in the column between the two garage doors so that that garage can fit 3 cars in there, and that cable will reach. So no matter what spot it ends up being, I can certainly do that. And with the panel being installed, there's the option to upgrade to add another Tesla wall charger for another spot, or we have a little side garage as well, which eventually in the future. So I'm going to spend a little bit more upfront to make sure that it's easier in the future to upgrade. And boy, I'm pretty excited. I did post on Twitter, got a lot of nice feedback, and who knows, when I get my Tesla, I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's a new sort of Twitter trend. I don't even know who started it, but this hashtag Frunk Puppy, where you're supposed to take a puppy or a pet or something. I've seen cats. I saw somebody put a cockatoo in their frunk of their Tesla and took a picture. We have a pretty big dog. We've got a Rhodesian Ridgeback named Ridgely at home, and she's about 80 pounds. She's a big dog, and I would like to take a picture of her in the frunk and then post it, but I'm afraid that her monster claws will scratch the finish. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do or how I'm going to handle that. But we'll see. Either way, I'll keep you updated. I've got probably one more show before pickup day, which should be next Friday should be the next show, and then pickup day the Monday after that. All right, that does it for this week. Once again, thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. You can reach me through email at teslanewstopics@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at teslanewstopics. Would love to interact with you there. Music for the show provided by Melodious Thunk. You can use my Tesla referral link. The time for unlimited supercharging has now passed, but there's still a good discount here. It's ts.la/Jeff62003. Also, don't forget, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/teslanewstopics, and I would like to thank both of my supporters, my brother Greg and also Trey, for supporting the show. Remember to subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss an episode. Also, leave a positive review if you feel so inclined. That'll do it for this week. Have a great one. I'll talk to you on next Friday.